One of the more harrowing films ever made, and a classic that's famous and influential, often quoted visually, thematically, in all kinds of movies. Henri Georges Clouzot's 1953 movie, The Wages of Fear. What's this movie about? Why should you appreciate it? Let me help you try to understand it and begin to interpret it coming up next. The Wages of Fear is a tension-filled movie about four men driving a truck in a South American, Latin American town going out to an oil field where a derrick has exploded, fires everywhere. They need to deliver nitroglycerin to it in order to explode it and put out the fire, actually. But they have to drive two trucks on a dirt road which has all kinds of obstacles on it. Will they get to their destination, or will they blow up because the nitroglycerin, if it even just moves around a little bit, can explode? This movie has two sections, maybe even arguably three sections to it. The first hour is set up with the town that the men are in. The second part of the movie, the last 90 minutes or so, are the four men driving the two trucks along the road and trying to get to their destination. Now, I think for a modern audience, this movie may play as a little boring, in fact, at least for a while until it gets to the last 90 minutes. The setup, which isn't a setup even, it's sort of a grand setting for this event that takes place in the last 90 minutes, is this fictional South American town, Las Piedras, which I think translated is the Stones. And there you get a picture, I think, of a multicultural or colonial environment, which you have natives in the town, foreigners, you have people from basically all over the world, or at least Europe and Latin America, hanging out in a town that's pretty poor, dilapidated, dusty, gritty, and grimy. The town basically exists because of a U.S. oil corporation, fictional in this movie, named SOC, which dominates the town and the surrounding area because, of course, there are oil wells. In the town, you have the company headquarters with a man named Bill O'Brien, an American, speaks in English as an American, and he's the one who sets up this mission for the four men to go, deliver the nitroglycerin to the oil wells. And thus, this town is dominated by a corporation. And in the town are all of these foreign men, and other men too, who don't have any work. And so they sit around all day in the hot sun, and they try to be in the shade. The opening shot is really interesting, though. It's cockroaches, a kid playing with the cockroaches on the roads. And that, I think, is likened to the men and their relationship to the corporations. They are cockroaches to this giant American corporation, the oil company. The movie thus has been read as some kind of anti-U.S. statement, and maybe it is anti-imperialist, anti-colonialist, something like that, which is against this sort of dominance hierarchy shown in the movie of the corporation first, below the town, then the men in the town, and then all the little peons running around, the natives too, perhaps.
Ici, il n'y en a pas un qui a un job. On a des coupures, des combines. On arrive à croûter et à s'en jeter un de temps en temps. C'est tout.
Mais pourquoi vous vous barrez pas?
C'est pas l'envie qui manque, tu verras.
The town is almost likened to hell. It's really hot as well. They can't get out. They literally almost can't get out because it's too expensive to get a plane or a boat out, and so they can't get out. Thus, they bargain their lives, or they, risk their lives for $2,000, which can get them out of town, and is a heck of a lot of money back then. Roughly $20,000 in today's inflation-adjusted money, maybe more than that because of the town. The money probably goes a long way in the town. And so we can see rationally why these four men decide to do what they do. Nonetheless, the movie is asking a gigantic question, and in fact, it's a little bit of a trick question because you don't think of it while you're watching the movie. I dare say most people wouldn't. Most people probably watching this movie want the men to get to the destination, and the question of the tension of the movie, will they get to the destination or will the trucks explode? Yeah, that's a question, an important one for the drama and the action of the movie, but I think the main question here is, why are these men risking their lives for money? Are they really saying my life is worth $2,000? In fact, I will die for this $2,000. And thus there's this gigantic question, which the movie's title exposes. How much is your life worth? Are you going to be beholden to a major corporation who's telling you your life is worth $2,000? And they're willing to risk your life. The Bill O'Brien character says, we want men who don't work for a union, who don't really have a family, and thus if they die, no big deal in this, escapade where they're delivering the nitroglycerin, the trucks. The corporation is willing to kill the men, not really kill them, but risk their lives at least.
You mean you're going to put those bums to work?
Yes, Mr. Bradley, because those bums don't have any union, nor any families, and if they blow up, nobody will come around bothering me for any contributions.
And besides, they'll work for peanuts.
And the men never stop to consider the question because, of course, for them, $2,000, this is what they need to live a better life, whether it's getting out of the town or for one of them, Luigi, to, function at the point where his health is really bad, so he needs to stop working at some point. He'll have enough money if he gets to $2,000 to have a better life. So I think the town at the beginning, this hour that you're going to see and maybe be bored by, really is important. It's about a multicultural place dominated by a giant corporation, U.S. corporation. It's a picture of third world abject poverty, or just poverty in general. Maybe a picture of the nations, of the state of men or humankind in general. And there's a dominant hierarchy with the cockroaches, the kid, the road, the corporation, and then Mother Nature. Overall, everything. And you'll see Mother Nature play a serious role in this movie, thwarting the men, and they have to overcome it at almost at every point in the movie. And there's no friendships in the town, or the friendships are very thin. The love relationships are basically non-existent. You get this female character, Linda. She's scrubbing the floor. Her employer's staring at her. She loves this guy, Mario, who's a bit of a playboy. He seems to have, disdain for her. And that is actually a feature of the movie that comes in at the very end, obviously. Will Mario get back to her or not? Will there be a romance or not? Is that possible in this movie? And the mini world that this movie creates of the colonial town, the giant U.S. oil corporation, it's so harsh that I think the movie denies friendships and love relationships altogether. It's one way to read this brutal movie, which is nevertheless, you feel empathy, I do, at least for the men who are delivering the nitroglycerin. In fact, I once worked for an oil company, drove a truck around, got stuck in the mud. It's very harrowing and annoying experience, and you get that in this movie times 10 or times a million, because of course not only these men get stuck in the trucks can explode, and the editing is so good. Clouzot shows you the big geographical picture. In fact, it helps that he's got two trucks, so you can see how one truck navigates a hairpin turn, and what the other truck then has to do. And it's a setup for the second truck turning the corner, doing the hairpin turn. He has this great, camera sense of giving you the geography of the scene, then giving you little parts of the scene, like tires in the mud, the rope, the men's faces. You get a shot of the cab, and you get all these little slices while you're getting the whole geography of the scene, and you know where they are, and you know what the tensions are. This movie is so well constructed and put together. I think people like Christopher Nolan watch this movie still. I've heard Nolan mention this movie as an inspiration for action sequences, period. So if you're a filmmaker, you've got to study this movie, the last 90 minutes at least, for how it edits action sequences. This movie talks about a lot of things: the fear of nuclear weapons, the fear of war and explosions, the fear of death hitting you instantly, or, suddenly learning that you're going to die. These men are tough and brutal, but they can't overcome all the obstacles, or they have a very hard time doing so. And thus, just individual or groups of men, even as tough as these guys are, especially after World War II in a, climate dominated by the U.S., what little say do these men have at all? And, Mother Nature is going to dominate you. The corporations are going to dominate you. You can try your best, but even the individual Mario, he's a little reckless at times. And by the end of the movie, well, you see what happens to him. What do you think about this movie? How do you watch it? What do you get out of it? Let us know in the comments. I'd love to hear from all kinds of people, because the movie is talking about South America, France, maybe Italy, all the places people are from, certainly the U.S. and corporations and how our lives interact with corporations. So I'm really interested to hear your perspective, because there's people from all over the world watching this channel and having probably a different take on what this movie has to say to them. Please subscribe to this channel for more great content. Thank you. Have a great day.